Okay, so let's continue on because as I said before, there's multiple messages, multiple things we'd want to check for when we're validating a user input. So imagine here that we wanted to say if any of these fields were 0, right? Then do some, put in some kind of matter of fact, we could use this same error message. If we wanted to customize the error message, then we would do it only for one. But this allows me to introduce the concept of and or. Easy for me to say. Okay. There's or, there's and JavaScript. Okay. So the logical and, okay, logic and. So scrolling down through here, this is the other very common thing, right? So when we say, matter of fact, I'm going to actually show you how to see this, but when it's or, one or the other, if they're false, will return true. When it's an and, they both have to be, if they're both false, then it returns true. If they're both true, then it returns true. But let me actually show you this in action to help you kind of to see it. Okay. So let's say we say if miles, and then we'd say or, okay, gallons equal 0, or, okay, what is it? Price equal, triple equal 0. So now we're checking for 3 different conditions. And because we're using the or, any of these, if any of these is true, then it well, let's just see it. I want to show it to you because I think it's one of those things that until you see it, it's just hard to understand it. Okay, let's clear this. Let's refresh the page. Let's come down here to our event listener. Okay, let's stop here and let's refresh the page. But oh yeah, and remember, and I've said this before, it won't trigger this code until we actually put numbers in here. Okay, so let's put 1 here and 0 here. So we have 2 of them that do have 0 and 1 that has something other than 0. So what will happen here is when we hit submit, it stops here, 0, 2, okay? So because we've done the or, right? So we'd say miles, what's that? So miles, let's get rid of this just so you can see it. Miles, what's that? That's true. Gallons equals 0. What is that? Even before I paste it. Okay? Sorry, I pasted the same one. Oh, that's because I messed up. Oh, it must not have the current copy. It must not have the current copy. 0, 2. Must have been when I was doing it. There it is. Okay. So we already know this one is true. So now gallons equal, right? We know that one's false. And we know this one's true. So if we said, right, false or true or false, what does it resolve to? In this case, it resolves to true because it's an or. So if they were all false, right, then it would return, well, actually, let's see it, right, false. This is why if you're ever in question, start using, right, it'll return as false. If they're all true, then it'll return as true. But we want it to return as true, meaning, yes, we have one of these values, right? It's caught this condition. We do have this error. Okay, so now it's the same functionality we had before, but we're checking for more errors. Got it? So now let's actually add another one. Okay, I know I went through that a little bit faster, but we got introduced to something really fundamental in JavaScript, the or. We wrote the or. Could we have written with this with and? All of them would have had to have been 0 for this to trigger this push of this message into the array. So and wouldn't have made sense here. They would have all had to be, okay, triggered in that case, or condition met. So now let's actually do one more. Okay, if let's say miles, and in this case, let's say greater than, okay, 10,000. right? And let's say, and now we could do, let's just leave it as this way, just for now, just to kind of keep it simple, because I want to show you the idea here of the message, right? So let's now, if it's true that somebody put in more than 10,000, or actually let's actually do this. Let's do price greater than $1,000 per gallon, which God knows, let's hope we never see that. Okay, so error message, MSG. Remember, that's the array, push, and I'd say something snarky. Really? I think this is in error. Try again. And this is where sometimes you can see the attitude of the developer. Okay. So let's see this in action, because now we have two conditions. Let's say we have 0 here. This one's fine. Okay. But we want this one to be 2,000. So then what should happen here? Okay. Let's just see it run. Right. So now we got 2 error messages on here, which I would say this is not the greatest of output. And we could definitely start talking about better ways to output that. But for now, it's just a simple way. Okay. One thing I would maybe do is just add between each of them a line break, right? That would make sense. So maybe actually that could be a challenge. How could we add a line break there? But I actually have a different challenge, so we'll figure that out in a minute. Okay, so one other thing I want to do in CSS here is actually do error, and I'm going to do a class, another class called error, and I'm going to say color equal red. Now, why am I going to do that? Because on my div here, besides an error, I'm going to say class equal red, right? Cool. Now, if I have 0, let's see, did I get that right? Class equal red. Oh, error. I didn't do error. I think I did. That's what I didn't do. Right? Yeah, I did. I could have called it red. That would have been the other way I could have done it. By the way, the refresh is actually hitting there. That's why I'm getting that error, I'll show you in a minute what I mean. So now we'll get it in here. Oh, good. So at least now it's in red, right? So if somebody does it again and play with this, right? When it runs again, right, it's there. So now we want to think about how to clear this, right? Right. So there's 2 things I'm going to have you do as a coding challenge. Is there a way you think you could figure out how to clear this? Of course, I'm going to show you the answer. Okay. And then the other thing I want you to do is figure out a way. So there's 2 challenges on this one. Okay. And that's the way we're going to end up with this one on 2, because I'm going to move on to objects next and kind of come back around to this one. So there's 2 challenges you have here. The first challenge is can you figure out how to clear this if the submission is good? Okay. If the submission is good, can you figure out how to clear it? Right? So update the code here. Now, if you can't, and if you, either way, report it in your README file. Were you successful in doing that? And the second thing, so there's 2 challenges. The other thing is, can you get the average, which we have done before, right? So if you look back, right, we had the average here and we took it out and we haven't done it. How could you get the average? So you have 2 challenges, 2 coding challenges for the next round. And again, don't watch my video until you've attempted it. Okay. And then in the README file, report, were you successful with the 2 challenges that I've given you? Clearing this and validation. Okay. Clearing that error message, which, by the way, the way I've done it here, I want you to do it through code. Okay. Is there a way in code you think? I want you to research it, see if you can figure that out. And then how can we output? And by the way, I want you to output the average outside of this form. Okay. So that's your challenge for the next one. And then I'm going to say it again in the README file for this one right here, right? Report back to me if you were successful in those, right? And then of course I'm going to look at the code, right? That's what I want to do. But I'm going to give you the code. So what I'm really is just seeing how well we're translating some of these challenges, this code that you're learning. All right. So I will end up having one more video, and then you will submit your one for this one. Okay.